to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.net. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. As always, thanks for joining us this week. Now, as you listen to the show, I really, truly hope that no matter what change you're going through in your life, it could be a change you've chosen. It could be a change that's kind of been thrust upon you. And I know change can be super difficult if we're not sure what that next step is. So I certainly hope between my guests and I and our conversation that we provide some tools and tips and strategies for you to implement so that you make that change a little bit easier. So of course, I have a free gift for you to help you navigate that change that's happening in your life. So if you go in the show notes, you'll see I have my free communication style assessment. You'll get 2 reports. One, it will really spotlight your natural superpowers. So how people perceive you. That's really what we're saying, right? That report will show you how people perceive and receive your message. Flip side, you will also get a report with your lowest score, which is your blind spot. That might even be more important than understanding your superpowers. So again, the link is in the show note. My gift to you, I truly hope it helps you navigate whatever change that you're facing. Now, my motivational quote today is by David Allen, and David says, if you don't pay appropriate attention to what has your attention, it will take more of your attention than it deserves. So I often think about people who seem to just have it all together, right? They get everything done and they seem to or appear to have free time to actually go out, enjoy and play and do whatever, brings them pleasure. Well, what's their secret? Because I'd like to free up some of my time and be more productive, but also be able to enjoy life to its fullest. So are you thinking, all right, Con, great idea. How the heck do we accomplish this? So I'm glad you asked. I have an amazing guest today. Her name is Kristen Taylor. And Angela and I are going to discuss the 4 elements of integrative productivity and how our childhood stories are the key to unleashing our best self. Now, Angela is an integrative productivity coach, writer, and speaker, and she serves as a transformational catalyst to business owners, entrepreneurs, and of course, sales professionals. Angela's signature method, productive flow, integrates emotion, energy, time, and focus to help her clients create natural productive flow, achieve higher levels of success in business, and actually, more importantly, to life. Now, Angela, this is our second show together. On April 10th of 2023, we recorded my other show, Changing the Sales Game, and we really talked about this from a little bit different framework. So I would tune into both if you are interested in learning about productivity. So Angela, thanks for being on the show. I'm excited about our conversation today.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Connie.
Yeah. So again, our first show, we dug in and we talked, and you never know where this conversation is going to go as well. So I think it really good for people to listen to both. I will put that link in the show notes as well, everyone, so that if you really enjoy our conversation today, you could tap in and listen to that one too. So my first question, Ange, for you is, how do I get started as a coach? How did you get started as a coach, and how did you come up with this integrative productivity model that you use?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I'll tell you, as far as like getting started as a coach, I really fell into it. I never really set myself up and said, oh, I'm going to go out and be a coach. I was a realtor. And I loved being a realtor. And I started out in real estate actually as a real estate investor. And then I worked as a real estate assistant, then a real estate agent, loved it. But I loved being that person in the office that the people came to for ideas and solutions and things like that. I always had like a brainstorming kind of a mind. And so I just loved that part. And so what ended up happening was I set up a company to do marketing for realtors. And that company did very well. I had 10 people working for me, and I set that up and left real estate as an agent. I stopped marketing myself as an agent, still would sell a house here and there to friends and family. But I did that because I had started having kids and I wanted to be home and not have to be at the mercy of clients and going to visit people's houses and, show homes and things. So as I was doing that, I found that the people that were working for me were doing all the work for the realtors. And I was just sitting on the phone doing the brainstorming and helping them solve problems. And they're like, wow, this was better than my coach. Thanks so much. And I'm thinking, coach, what is that? And so I started really digging in deeper to find out what was a coach. And that's when I just kind of said, okay, well, I guess I'm a coach. Apparently I'm good at it. And back then, realtors only worked with productivity coaches. So I said, well, I guess I'm a productivity coach. And this is me at approximately 27, 28 years old. So I really didn't know a whole lot about what I was doing, to be honest. And just kind of was putting myself out there the way I had been. And it went really well, but I found that productivity was the thing that I felt most challenged by. So I felt like a hypocrite. Like, here I am coming out and saying, I'm a productivity coach. And while I could talk my clients through their issues or things like that and ask them the right questions that would help them dig deeper, I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. And I wasn't getting anywhere with my own productivity. And then I started to realize, as I was hearing them tell me more about their personal stories, that our stories were so similar. And there were so many just similarities in general that it made me start to question, what really is productivity and where does it come from? And could it be something that we all just have, but somehow it's blocked? And we're just like, what is the difference between somebody that's super productive and efficient and gets everything done and they're really like quick about it, and the rest of us who were struggling to sit down and focus, and it just felt like our brains were always going in so many different directions, and we would have these great ideas, but then we wouldn't follow through with them. And it was just trying to figure out, like, what was the difference? And I realized that the difference came down to the childhood stories. And it was the stories that made me start to question, because they were so similar. And I found that there was always some sort of childhood trauma. Didn't have to be abuse, didn't have to be intentional. It was just, this is something that happened. This was the perception that we had of it. And this is the story we just took and created and then buried into our body somewhere.
Yeah.
And it was that story that would then inform our actions and behaviors later on in life, right? So it's like, saying, I have this business that I really want to get out there, and I'm really excited to talk about my business, and I want to bring all these clients, and I want to make $1 million and serve all these people, and isn't that going to be wonderful? And like, I have this big dream, right? And then not do anything that actually brings clients in the door, because you're stuck in this space of getting ready to get ready to get ready to get ready, and always feeling like it's not good enough. It's not ready to put out in front of people, or you start to put it out in front of people, but then they don't respond to it, and you feel like nobody's listening. And then what happens is those childhood stories come up again, and you say to yourself, I can't do this. I shouldn't do this. I'm supposed to do this instead. Nobody listens to me. I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as this person or that person. And those statements are beliefs that come from the stories we heard as kids.
Yeah.
This is where it all comes from.
Yeah, it's so interesting that, as I age, right, let's look at it from, I can only talk from my perspective in life, right? But as I age, that the stories that we've told ourselves or that we've learned, and learned not necessarily where a teacher or mom or dad or grandma or grandpa said, oh, this is XYZ, just observing from a child's brain, right, of seeing a situation, kind of internalizing it, however it was perceived by a 4, 5, 6-year-old, right, kid, and yet how that is playing out in our adult life. So it's fascinating. So I want to share something this morning. I watched, my niece and nephew are down in Tennessee, and they have, JJ is about 3.5 years old now. And, he's the light and of all of our life, right? I'm the great aunt, and I just adore this kid. But she sent a video, because of course he's reading now, and he's just a very bright little boy. Am I bragging too much, right? Connie, stop. But she have every morning and every night, they have a list of affirmations I am worthy, I am smart, I enjoy, and they go through every morning and every night. And I was taken back because I thought, what a brilliant thing to teach a child so that because we learn what we learn through observation. But her name is Kayla. She's trying to teach him to put those good affirmations in his brain, because the observation is the observation of how we receive information, even as a child. But that if we could put kind of good stuff in there as part of that childhood learning, what a beautiful gift she's giving. And so I think that we're getting smarter as neuroscience, as we do more neuroscience and there's more research being done, that these little things can truly impact the long term. So I'm loving that these, 30-year-olds that have children are using this neuroscience and all of this stuff that, my generation, my parents had no idea about spirituality, universe, neuroscience, quantum physics. Like, what the heck was that? So it's just interesting to see how it's playing out now with the 30-something-year-olds. Now, you're young. Can I ask how old you are?
Now I'll be 49 in a couple of months. I'm not that young.
Okay, so anybody listen on Apple, go to my YouTube channel. You got to look at her. There's no way. There's no way. I thought you were in your 30s. Okay, so
no, September
we want
74.
What she's drinking, everybody. That's remarkable. I love it. The other thing I wanted to say about the productivity and our childhood stories, we don't even realize what debilitates us. Like, we have these brilliant ideas and you said, I'm getting ready to get ready to get ready to get ready. And we never move forward. And I think that sometimes we just have to move forward, pull the trigger, right? Go into action mode, even if it's not as good as you'd like it, or the representation of how wonderful you are. Getting the information out that could potentially help someone. The refinement could come after the fact, but we hold back our zone of genius and our ability to aid someone because we don't feel we're ready, it's ready, and we don't want to show up ill prepared, which I think is great. But at what point do we shoot ourselves in the foot and not move forward with all of the things that you're saying? So it keeps us from being productive or creating or bringing to the market something that I'm doing that could truly help someone else. So here's the message, right? Stop being selfish, get out of your own head. You're amazing, right? And just enter into that power that I think we fear sometimes because of those childhood stories, right?
Yeah, definitely. But it's really interesting because it's like all the productivity people that are out there, right? It's like traditional productivity coaching, training, tips, hacks, all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Is predicated on the fact that if I tell you to go do something, then you're just going to be able to go do it, right?
That's right. That's right.
But the problem is that we know what to do. We're not doing it because we're not able to. There's something standing in the way, right? And that's what I want to make a point of, is that it is something standing in the way. It's not something missing from you. It's not something wrong with you. It's just something is standing in the way. And so we have to figure out what is standing in the way. And usually that relates to the childhood stories. But this is why I have this 4-step process with emotion, energy, time, and focus, right?
Yes.
And so I always have people start with focus, because when they understand what it is that they really want, and they understand it to the point that it brings them to tears, because they feel it. It's like in their body, they feel it, like, oh my God, if that was my life, that's just amazing. And then it's like something inside of them just rises up, and then they start to cry, and they don't even know why. They're not feeling sad. They're not feeling it. It's just like, this is it. This is it. And I call it setting your GPS, because it's understanding what is the destination you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
That if you said, hey, if I got here, then like life would be amazing, right? And sometimes we tie it into stuff, and it's not necessarily stuff, right? We have these vision boards filled with all these things. It's not the things. It's the experiences the learning, the growth, the way you contribute and give back, it's those things. So when you identify what those things actually are, experiences, growth, and contribution, and you put that together and you say, this is a day in my life, then you can say, okay, now I know what it is that I really want to do. And funny enough, that's actually one of our biggest problems, is we just don't know what we want to do because we're trying to do something that somebody else said, oh, you're good at this,
Yes.
or you should do this, or
Yes.
you're supposed to do this, or you're telling yourself, well, I'd really love to do this, but I'll never make money doing that. So I guess I have to do this instead.
That's right.
And so we don't ever really find our focus. And then once we do, it's funny how it's really not that different from what you're doing. It's just a little tweak. Usually it's just something that just needs to be shifted slightly that turns what wasn't working into your absolute ideal. And then so because it's just that tweak, we can start to backtrack it to make your time actually start to look more like that now. Make your schedule look more like that now. And that's when things start to really come together.
It's taking the time to discern, right? What do I want? What do I really want? And then on the flip side, then what is that first baby step that I could take, right, to create the action? So, when I train, obviously sales, I do a lot of, I request, so I was going to say, I tell them, I request that a lot of the exercises are self-reflection. So I bring that into my training, because if we don't think about things and someone tells us you need to do, you need to get organized. And I go, yeah, I need to get organized, but I don't have a clue how to get organized because that's just not my jam, right? I'm more of a free spirit kind of thing. We can come up with all of these great things, but if it's not a natural instinct for us, sometimes we need more. So one of the questions I ask in the self-assessment is, what motivates you? Well, first is, are you self-motivated? And most people will raise their hand, like 99%. Then I ask, well, what motivates you? And it's really very funny because people say serving, finding a solution, being a good partner, whatever it is for them, their family, right? All these things that make a lot of sense, but I always get money. And so I always tease, right? Obviously I joke around and I say, okay, we're coming back to you, problem child, right? And then I go on around, and then I go back to the person who said money. Money doesn't motivate us. It's what you were describing. Looking at, if I could do that, right? Like you see somebody doing a job that you think, oh, that is awesome sauce. Like I would love to do that. And then we talk ourselves out of it, right? That negative record player. So that what motivates you is not the money. It's that magic of, I wish I could do, or what do I need to do be a coach? What do I need to do, right? To teach sales, whatever it is that you're looking for. But when you see it, when you feel it, that's what motivates us, not the money, not the, the accolades, not that I'm pleasing my mom or dad, right? It's at the soul level that the vibration moves us. We can then become productive because we're in our zone of genius of what we probably should be doing in the first place. So I love how you described it's almost like this emotional, like, it's an emotional release, because it's like, I understand now, I see what I should be doing. Right.
Totally. 100%. Yeah. And that's the first part of it, is understanding what it is that we want to really do.
Yeah.
And it's doing without the shoulds and supposed to's attached to it. Right.
Yeah.
And so when we find that out, and then we start to make our time look like that, what we find is that there's energy and emotions that come into play. And so there are going to be stories that start to come up, that start to trigger you, that start to make you feel that same story again, playing itself out. I can't, nobody's listening, blah, 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 right? Like all that stuff comes up. And then there's the energy that we feel moving through our bodies as we're doing this. Like there's the physical energy aspects of like taking care of your body, making sure you're eating right and drinking right, and getting enough sleep and moving your body, stretching and things like this. But there's also more of the etheric energy aspects of feeling like like what do you do when the Schumann resonance is 90% like it was last night? And all of a sudden you're like, why do I feel like this? I don't know why I feel like this. And there's solar flares and planets are moving, and you're like, why is this happening? Like, I feel so heavy today, or I feel so worn out today. And so a lot of us who are more tuned in to that spiritual side of things, we're more sensitive to some of these energies that are at
Absolutely.
play. And so what happens is sometimes that can shut us down in the moment.
Absolutely.
And so we have to learn how to, adjust ourselves, almost like a manual adjustment,
Yes.
right? So that we're able to function despite whatever energy might be at play during that moment, right? And understanding that when we have a day where things are not moving, things are not happening, like we're just spinning our wheels, that's not the time to sit down and try to get stuff done,
That's right.
because it's going to play into your negative stories.
That's right.
Now's the time to get up, turn some music on, and shift your energy so that you are in a more positive space. Get yourself outside, put yourself feet on the ground. Something that's going to turn your energy around is what you need to do to get back on track in that moment. And sometimes it only takes 5 minutes. Sometimes it takes the whole day. But like paying attention to that, honoring that side of yourself, and knowing that like all things are coming in the right timing. All things are coming to you at the right space, the right time, the right energetic response. And all you have to do is pay attention and listen, hear, feel into the experiences that you're having and where your body is at. And as you're doing this, and as these stories start to come up, you start to become more aware of what's actually happening in that moment, right?
Yeah.
So you see like, oh, I'm starting to prospect and I feel like my energy is starting to be pulled away from me. I feel emotionally like I feel overwhelmed. I feel stressed. I'm starting to snap at people. There's something here, right? There's something here. And so one of the things that I've been working with lately is emotion code. And are you familiar with that?
I am. Yes.
I love emotion code. So I've really been playing with emotion code a lot lately, and seeing how it plays into my productive flow process, and actually releasing these trapped emotions, trapped heart wall emotions, trapped inherited emotions, right? And when we release those things, sometimes the stories are rewritten before us, right?
That's right.
It's like it just pulls the story out. We don't have to relive it. We don't have to really re-experience it. It's just, it pulls it out and then it's gone. And now we start noticing that our behaviors and our actions and our thoughts are shifting just subtly, slightly. But those shifts make all the difference as we're starting to do that thing that ordinarily would trigger us. All of a sudden, we're able to do it.
Yeah.
And this is the productivity piece, that it's like when we start to shift these things, all of a sudden now it's not that we don't know how to do something or what to do, but now we can do it instead of being blocked.
Yeah. And oh gosh, there were so many things in what you just said. I want to unpack a little bit because the energy, there's energy in the world. And if you don't read numerology, I highly recommend it, because numbers and energy and dates absolutely carry an energetic vibration, right? When Mercury goes into retrograde, like they say, be mindful, back up your computer, because there's going to be tech issues and stuff like that. So be ready for it and then go with the flow. So you really do have to understand what's happening energetically out in the world. And you said something like, I've had those days where I feel like anything I'm doing is taking me 10 times longer. I'm getting frustrated. I feel so fatigued. It's almost like I'm trudging through the mud, right? You have to walk away. And I will tell you, years ago in my 20s, 30s, probably even into my 40s, when I had those energetic shifts of depletion, I fought even harder and worked harder and dug deeper. And the productivity what I was trying to do never came to fruition because the timing was off. My energy, I didn't have the energy to do what was needed to bring whatever that project to the finish line or whatever it might be. So instead of walking away, it was a very hard lesson to learn. I would keep trudging through that mud. And what happens is the mud would start to dry up and get harder and harder to trudge through. And then by the end of the day, you feel depleted. I'm worthless. I'm useless. And all that negative record player gets louder because we fight instead of surrendering to what probably is happening energetically in the world, or the vibration in the world, because of planets and full moons and eclipses and all these things that absolutely affect us as humans. So I think that's an important lesson, to be mindful and start to listen to your body and be aware of what's happening out in the world. Please do not watch the news, refrain from watching the news, but understand what's happening with planets and stuff like that. The other thing that you said was, when we start to tune in to our own emotional, right? And you're using the emotional code. Just for anybody who doesn't know what that is, and I'll give you a quick example. I had met a woman networking live way before COVID. And I had a chronic knee issue when I was working out in my, probably in my 50s, my early 50s. I tore my meniscus. And I went to the surgeon and the whole thing, because it was a slight tear. They said it really wasn't worth doing the surgery, go to physical therapy, blah, 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 blah. Chronic issue. Christmas time, when I'd be super busy, and I would have to put a brace on because I couldn't even walk. It was just so painful. So I meet this woman at a networking and we're chatting, and I don't know what I said. I limped. She goes, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" I said, meniscus, blah, blah, blah. She goes, "I think I can help you." I said, "What do you do?" And then she told me she does emotional code, which is muscle testing. Anyway, about 3 or 4 sessions with her, and this was probably about 8 years ago, we eliminated, I had gotten an energy, whatever that childhood story or energy landed in my knee. So, because when I injured it, where did that energy, that negative energy or memory,
went to the weak spot?
It went to my weak spot, and I could not move it, and nothing helped it. To this day, I'm knocking on wood right now, I don't have pain in my knee anymore. I don't even think about it anymore. So that's the emotional code, that sometimes we can move those memories or those childhood, that negative stuck energy in us. We can move through it through the emotional code. So I'm curious to see, Ange, what the connectivity, as you learn more about this, how you can utilize it so that we can move through things even more efficiently to become that, even exponentially more productive. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks. I'm finding that it's really interesting because I had a very similar experience where I was having physical pain, and it was in my shoulders and my neck. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. And I went to the chiropractor, and he was like, "There's nothing wrong with you. You're in alignment." No, I'm not. It hurts.
Right, it hurts. I'm in pain.
And then I went to an Egoscue practitioner, and she has me doing all these different things. It still wasn't helping. I'm doing yoga. I'm doing all the things. I'm putting stuff on my neck. It went on for months, and I'm like, there's something wrong. And then a friend of mine is an emotion code practitioner. And so I just happened to tell her about it. And she's like, "Let's look at this." And she started clearing some stuff, and it immediately, the pain started to move. As we were in this first session, and I'm like, what? Like, this is crazy. And then like a couple more sessions later, it was completely gone. And I'm going, that's amazing. And then it never came back. And what was happening was it was interesting because it was right when I started my podcast, or actually right before. And so there were all these things coming up where I was needing to use my voice. And there was this feeling of like the weight of the world on my shoulders, and that when I would speak, that no one would listen. There was a lot there, a lot of that energy there. And so as she was releasing all these old trapped emotions, this old trapped energy that was stored in this area, in my shoulders and my neck, that it just disappeared. And so it got me really, really interested in emotion code. And when I read the book and started going, and I haven't gotten certified, so I'm not like a practitioner. It's something I want to add though. So it's on my list, but I've just started to really play with it and start to do some things with some of my clients saying, "Hey, I'm not certified. but I'd like to try this with you if you
Sure.
would be open to it. And they're like, yeah,
Sure.
sure. Let's check it out, And so just starting to play with this, and I've just been doing this over the last month and already seeing how some of these things are like the emotional stories that we used to have come up as I was coaching them. And then we'd have to address it, try to rewrite it. Is this true? No. Where did this come from? Well, there was this time when I was a kid, and they kind of, we talk through it, and then we create a new story around their adult truth versus their childhood truth.
That's right.
And that's what we've done. And that's worked great, but this is much faster.
Yeah. It
So
moves it. Yeah.
it moves it, it releases it, and then it's getting it unstuck. And I find that completely fascinating. And so that's why I'm now like, yeah, the certification is definitely on my list, because I want to be able to integrate this into this practice for me, because it's just in testing it, it's gone so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it, the stuff works, but you have to be
Mhm.
open to it like anything else. And that's the thing. My podcasts, but both my podcasts, I really try to help people shine a light on a topic, right? Our topic today is
Mhm.
about productivity, but what is productivity, right? So
Mhm.
we look at this, or really what's stopping us from being more productive, right? Whatever that means for you, whatever you're trying to accomplish in your life. These childhood stories, these emotional baggage that we don't even know is there sometimes, that truly can be inhibiting for us. So like your example with the
Yeah.
neck pain, as you were
Mhm.
doing the podcast, it's
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm tired. I'm not going to do it today. I won't launch my podcast till next month. We postpone
Mhm.
things instead of
Mhm.
facing them in a productive
Yeah.
way because of the pain. So the pain was protecting you in
Mhm.
case of that mental chatter of what
Yeah.
if no one listens?
Yeah.
What if it's stupid? What if it's a
Yeah.
failure? So the
Yeah.
pain comes in to say, I'm protecting you, body. So don't do
Yeah.
that podcast, right? It's
Yeah.
almost like the child
Uh-huh.
within saying,
Exactly.
warning, Will Robinson, right? Or danger,
Yeah.
Will Robinson,
Uh-huh.
don't do that. And then
Yeah.
that's what our body is doing. And that's how we break down in our productivity. It's so
Exactly.
fascinating when we talk about business terms like
Mhm.
productivity, and then that emotional, that more spiritual
Mhm.
side of ourselves. But the emotional stuff that's in us, stuck or moving or whatever, serving or not serving us anymore,
Mhm.
it is absolutely affecting what we get done, what we choose to get done, what we put
Mhm.
off, what we postpone that maybe we shouldn't. I mean, all these pieces
Mhm.
of the puzzle that are
Yeah.
moving because of our emotional, our stories, and that record, the record player, right? It's the record
Mhm.
player. We have to keep
Yeah.
learning, using these tools, emotional code, things that you teach your
Yeah.
clients,
Mhm.
even sales, the things I teach. How do we
Mhm.
lower that volume every day? Because every day it really can be a
Mhm.
challenge.
Yeah.
Ange, we're out of time.
No worries.
But I do want to listen, if you are intrigued and curious, please reach out to Angela. Go to her website, which is angelakristentaylor.com. And if you have a question for her, please email her at ak@angelakristentaylor.com. Don't worry, guys, it's in the show notes. You know where to find the links. And you have a free productivity breakthrough session that she's offering. Again, that link is there, and I will put it into the show notes so that if you are interested in chatting and seeing if what we're talking about on the show could potentially help you, or you've tried other things and you're frustrated and nothing's working, have a conversation with Angela. I guarantee you'll start to move stuff, or more importantly, understand why you're stuck. And I think sometimes, Angela, when we understand where we're stuck, we're already halfway through the journey of
Oh,
making that
yeah.
change, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the things is like when I do these breakthrough sessions with people, that there's a big form that you fill out. Like I'll just warn you in advance, there's a big form that you fill out. But it's really great because it gives me all the information that I know I need
Yeah.
without you having to go through that on the call.
Yeah.
So when we get on the call, I usually know already when I'm getting on the call exactly what's going on. So I
Yeah.
can get you to that breakthrough moment in like 5 minutes. And then the rest of the time we're talking about how to deal with that
Yeah.
once
Action
we've got
steps.
it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
love it. And it's funny, but take the time. Listen, if you're really struggling with something, or you want to do a podcast, or you want to change a job, you want to change your career, you want to look for a new job because you feel stuck and you're not growing anymore in your current position. Something like this is worthwhile. Take the time to fill the form out, because you're doing a lot of legwork for Angela. So when she gets on the phone with you, you could fast forward and be productive, right? Which is the point of the show. It's all about being productive.
Absolutely.
But sometimes we have to put the time in up front to get the back end result that we're seeking. So thank you so much. Thank you for offering that. I love offering free things to my listeners, because then it gives them a chance to explore something maybe they didn't know, or try something that would just a new practitioner, right? Or a different take on productivity that they never thought about. Instead of looking at time management and productivity, maybe it's this internal wall that we have that's blocking us, has nothing to do with our time management, right? So it's just, again, shifting that paradigm of thinking a little bit and looking at productivity from a little bit different perspective. And you never know, it might be exactly what you need to get to that next level. Ange, thanks so much for being on, sharing the stories and, like the shoulder pain and how that could inhibit us from, or slow us down from doing what we want to do, what we should be doing. We know in our soul we should be doing, but things within us, those stories from childhood and energies and all the things we talked about hold us back. So thank you for sharing. And this is important. This is an important topic, because we do have to be productive humans, but I think we also have to understand what blocks us. And sometimes it's not what you think. It's something on that subconscious level that we kind of need to peel back that onion and break through for you. So thank you again for sharing your zone of genius. So appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Back at you, sister. Truly my pleasure. I always love our conversations. So don't forget, I'll put our other conversation on changing the sales game podcast. I will put that in the show notes as well. So you guys can get double dose of Angela, which, trust me, is a worthwhile time spent. So thank you again. And thank you for joining me as weekly, as we question, build, and discover together. No matter what change you're facing, between my guests and I truly hope that we inspire you to try something new. Listening to the show, listening to the information, but doing nothing with it, that to me is dangerous, because action creates reaction, which creates the magic that you're looking for in your life. So even if this doesn't resonate with you, what action could you be taking? And let me rephrase that as inspired action can you be taking to start to change your life? You have the power to do it, right? We all do. I hope my guests and I help you get inspired to make that change. Thank you for tuning in to Changing the Sales Game with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. I wish you all a wonderful, inspired week filled with change that you're seeking, but I want to put you in this driver's seat to create that change now. Have a great one, everyone. I love you. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.